The holidays are supposed to be about spending time with family, but for retail workers like Ken here, it's more like a month-long descent into hell. He thinks he's been through it all, but somehow it actually gets worse when a goo-spewing space parasite starts turning the customers into horrifying mutants, whose only goal is to create one of the most bizarre monstrosities the planet has ever seen. That's why we're here to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat the mutant shoppers in Black Friday. It's the holiday season, and this year, the hottest item is your life. Early one Thanksgiving, retail worker Monty here is getting the place ready for the annual Black Friday sale. He's surprised that the customers are already waiting in line outside, but this year, their prices won't be the only thing getting cut. While he's hanging up a banner, a strange object suddenly crashes through the ceiling, causing him to drop his flashlight. Checking it out, he's shocked to discover a small pulsating blob lying in the middle of the floor. But that, as you can probably guess, was his biggest mistake. Because, as he leans in for a closer look, it suddenly opens up and hits him with a blast of sticky white goo straight to the face. By the time that his coworkers notice that he's missing, he's already started to transform into a terrifying monstrosity with boils all over his skin. And he lunges out from behind the electronics section to attack them. Later that night, single dad Ken here has to skip Thanksgiving dinner to work the Black Friday shift at the local toy store. The girls aren't fans of their mom's new boyfriend, but after dropping them off at her place, he goes to pick his coworker up, Chris. This dude's a total pushover who gets no respect from anybody besides Ken, and they're both feeling sorry for themselves because they have to work on Thanksgiving. But what neither of them realize is that this is about to be the last shift of their lives. Okay, well guys, it looks like we've got another space rock turning people into zombies. We saw it crash down through the ceiling, so it's most likely extraterrestrial origin. We can also tell from its behaviors that it must be a parasite. Basically, a parasite is an uninvited guest that latches onto a host in order to survive. The relationship is usually harmful, but most parasites don't kill their hosts right away. Instead, they actually keep them alive for as long as possible so that they can continue to use them for food and shelter. The rock that it came down in looks like a pod or an egg and must have been transporting the live parasite until it reached a suitable planet. From here, it seems to spread by contact with its sticky white goo, which enters the host's bloodstream and begins taking over their body in a rapid process that causes visible physical changes, like the boils we all saw all over that guy's body. Not only that, but it's able to control his actions as well, making him extremely violent and causing him to go after any uninfected humans that he sees. In nature, we can see something similar in how the cordyceps fungus causes zombie-like behavior in infected ants, forcing them to climb to high points and release the fungal spores over the widest area possible. Instead of sticking with this host, the parasite is already trying to spread to as many hosts as possible. And if they don't get control of the situation soon, then it won't be long before the infected humans outnumber the healthy ones. To contain the spread, first we need to isolate anyone who's already been infected. This needs to be done extremely carefully, using protective gear and avoiding direct contact so that you won't be infected as well. With how rapidly it transformed him, I don't have high hopes for the chances of anyone who catches the parasite getting cured, but it could still be possible using strong anti-parasitic medication or experimental treatments. The most important thing is to carefully contain the infected individuals and destroy the pod before it spreads any further, but this invasion is just getting started. As they're driving through town, they notice that the Walmart is closed, and Chris points out how strange it is that they aren't open for the big sale. Just then, an ambulance speeds by, almost colliding with their car, but it's still too early for them to realize that it's all related. There's a huge line of customers already waiting outside the store, and one guy tries to tell his wife that he isn't feeling well, but she makes him suffer through it so that they won't lose their place in line. While everyone else is busy working, Ken decides to go chit-chat with his work girlfriend, the cashier Marnie, who gives him a hard time for slacking off as usual, telling him to get lost until the holiday is over. In the break room, Bircher here is flipping through the channels when he passes up a news report about strange meteors making people feel sick. Everybody else is worried about the crowd, but he's planning to exploit the whole situation to make some quick money on the side. Stickler Anita here gives Chris a hard time for saying Black Friday, explaining that the company switched it to Green Friday to be less offensive, and gets on his case for his uniform being slightly untucked, proving that she must be a ton of fun at the holiday party. Shooting a video for his kids, Ken notices a stain on Santa's big chair, but he's interrupted when the truck driver Lou shows up needing directions to the bathroom ASAP. Bircher steps out back, where he notices a strange purple glow coming from underneath a nearby car. The door accidentally closes while he's distracted, leaving him locked outside, when all of a sudden, the growling creature sneaks up and claims him as its next victim. Okay, well, I guess this means Bircher here gets to clock out early. Lucky. But as for the rest of us, this actually shows a lot about the creature's hunting strategy, and most importantly, how to beat it. In the break room, they flipped right past a news report saying how other meteors have already struck all around town, which means that they have only a matter of hours before it's completely out of control. And if you're looking around at the crowd, you can already see that there are infected people starting to pop up in the store. Now, when it attacked Bircher here, the creature waited until he was completely alone before moving in. This shows us that it's using an ambush hunting strategy, preferring to only go after vulnerable and isolated targets first, at least for now. Once it infects somebody, it's slightly going to remain dormant in their system, trying not to reveal itself until there are enough infected to ensure its own survival. This would explain why the infected people in the store haven't gone completely feral yet. It should only be a matter of time before Ken and the others realize that they're in trouble, and once that happens, they'll need to act quickly if they don't want to get infected next. The best way to start is by locking down the store and making sure that no new shoppers can get inside. The parasite is going to try and hide, so they need to check everyone for signs of the illness, like a stomach ache, pale skin, and sunken eyes. From there, we can separate the healthy and infected customers by quarantining them in the back half of the store, which should cut off the parasite's ability to spread to new hosts. Then all they can do is call up the local authorities and let them know that they need help like pronto. The workers here barely have the equipment or training to even contain an outbreak like this, let alone cure it. So instead of focusing on helping the infected, the best thing that they can do is stop anyone else from becoming infected in the first place. For now, there's no reason to take more drastic measures against them unless you absolutely have to defend yourself, but soon, that's exactly what's about to happen. Back inside, Ken tops off his coffee with some holiday spirits to help him get through the shift. Chris here is frustrated that Anita keeps winning Employee of the Month even though he's always coming in early, but hey, at least he's forklift certified.
He made me learn how to work a forklift, all for nothing.
That's when the manager Jonathan comes over the speakers, warning all employees that this is the most dangerous day of the year, according to OSHA. There's a big sad teddy bear named Dower Dennis who's this year's hot ticket item, but they've been instructed not to sell any since the toy's been recalled over defective batteries. Last but not least, nobody gets a paid break tonight, and now that they've heard from the boss, it's time for the supervisor Brian to take over, but everyone's more worried about their holiday bonuses than going above and beyond for the pushy customers. They're all going back to their battle stations, but Brian stops Chris and hits him with some bad news. He's been reassigned to register duty for the night. The new guy Emmett comes healing up to Ken, saying that he's supposed to stick with him for training. Ken can tell that this guy is a rookie and explains that the best way to survive in retail is to act like a total idiot. Whenever a customer asks him for directions, he just points in a vague direction and lets them figure it out for themselves. Now that the kid's getting the picture, Ken sends him off to fend for himself because it's time to open the doors. Counting down, Jonathan announces that it's time for the bloodbath to start, and Brian unlocks the door, setting a horde of aggressive customers loose on the sales floor. The shop shoppers almost tear each other apart going after all the best toys, all while Ken just stands there staying out of their way. While Chris is ringing up a very angry grandmother, he's disgusted to find a bunch of sticky brown goo all over his keyboard. At the same time, Marnie notices a strange old man staring her down from the back of the line, but she gets distracted by Anita flirting with a mall Santa, and when she looks back, the guy is already gone. Frustrated, the supervisor shuts down Chris's line, telling him that his new job is to clean up a massive vomit incident at the back of the store. Ken makes a rude comment about the customers while picking up a box, and the angry old lady overhears the whole thing, shouting at him through a row of toys. Furious, she storms off and takes a seat on Santa's throne, completely clueless that the pulsing alien blob is lurking right under her feet. Christopher grabs a mop and arrives at the scene of the crime, but this doesn't look like any throw-up that he's ever seen. It's more like a disgusting pile of blood and guts, and the culprit did not go very far, but he's behaving extremely strangely, growling from behind a large box that he's pushing across the store. The kid tries to ask if everything's alright, but that's when the man starts rushing towards him like a blood-crazed zombie, forcing him to drop a container full of bouncy balls on top of his head. All of a sudden, another woman springs up from behind him, and Chris has to take her down with a bag of kitty litter. But by the time his coworkers get there, it just looks like he's going crazy and beating up the paying customers. After the incident, the employees are all just goofing around while they wait for the rest of the shoppers to leave the store. Brian and a few of the others have Chris tied up to a chair in the back, but even though he keeps insisting that the woman attacked him first, nobody else seems to believe it. That's when Jonathan shows up frustrated that they have to close the store, but Chris tries to warn them that they have a bigger problem on their hands. Okay, these idiots are about to get everybody killed, and they don't even know it yet. The main problem is that only Chris here actually knows what's going on, but there's an easy way he can prove it. He needs to get them to watch the security footage right now, and then they'll realize that what he's saying about the customers is actually true. It might already be too late to stop the infection from spreading, so all they can do is try to prevent themselves from catching it. What they need to do here is get all of the healthy employees together and lock themselves down in the back of the store, and from there we can start to work on a plan. Now, the infected shoppers might be ferocious, but they only possess the physical abilities of the average person. This means that beating the out of them is a perfectly viable option, so to start, everyone needs to get themselves a blicky or a weapon. The good news is that the store here should be full of things like bats, skateboards, and tools back here in the maintenance area. Right now, it looks like their best choice is to stay here at the back of the store and wait for a rescue team. But they should turn on the news or use their phones to get a better understanding of just how bad the situation really is. As long as society hasn't completely collapsed already, then their best chance of getting rescued is to stay in one place, since this makes them easier to find and reduces their chances of getting caught in a fight with the infected. I'd keep the doors locked, use the security cameras to keep an eye on the situation outside, and be ready to climb through the roof or escape through the back if things got any worse. Out on the sales floor, Emmett tries to help a customer who seems like she's having trouble, when all of a sudden, the woman spins around and grabs him by the head. She's already been infected by the parasite, and before anyone can help, she slams him down onto a shopping cart and spits a blast of the white goo straight in his face. Coming to the rescue, Ken breaks a skateboard over the back of the woman's head before taking Emmett and rushing him back to the back of the store. Now it's Ken who tries to explain that something is wrong here, but the manager still thinks that it's just the usual rowdy customers getting hyped for the sales. After hearing what he has to say, the others decide that they need to call the cops, even though Jonathan tries to stop them so that they won't close the store. It looks like they won't be much help though, because Brian's call goes straight to their voicemail, meaning that the workers are on their own. Anita's still pulling her "the customer is always right" routine, but Chris and everyone else here has had about enough of that shit. While they're busy arguing, Emmett starts tweaking out and vomiting up the tons of white slime. Anita comes over to get things under control, but as soon as she leans in close, the new guy blasts a web of goop right in the lady's face, and a fleshy spike pierces through the side of her neck. They can see that he's been transformed into a horrifying mutant, growling at them as he goes in for the next attack. Marnie hits the guy with the corporate appreciation cake, and that's when Archie comes back, blasting him several times with a nail gun gun, before he takes off running back to the sales floor. Now, while the others are still trying to figure out what they should do next, Brian tries calling around to the other stores, but nobody is picking up. Finally, they're able to get a hold of a store from the next town over, but from the sound of things, it seems like they're already having the same problem. On the other end, the woman warns them not to let the infected customers gather up, because it seems like they're trying to build something. It's incredibly strange, sure, but the woman gets attacked before they can find out anymore, leaving them clueless to what she means. Ken refuses to die here in the toy store, so he starts building up a team to go for his car out in the parking lot, but they still aren't sure what kind of trouble they might run into. Plus, some of the older workers can't run as well, so Archie suggests that they should just stay here in the store and hold it down. As for Jonathan, he pops a bottle of the company champagne, convinced that this will all blow over in just a matter of time. Just then, Marnie rushes over to pull him off of the chair, saving his life from Anita, who's just transformed into one of the creatures. Leaving her there, they decide to head back to the sales floor, trying to rescue as many people as they can, and then meet up back at customer service. Okay, at least now everyone's on the same page, even though two of them had to die before they even got the message. Now, what happened to Emmett here actually teaches us a lot about how the infection spreads from person to person, and that's important since our main goal here is to avoid getting infected. It looks like any infected person gains the ability to launch out some kind of web-like tongue, which latches onto the throat of their human victim and spreads the parasite into their bloodstream. It also alters their biology, transforming them into these strong and feral creatures that are going to be more of a challenge in a fight than your average person. That's because the parasite is able to control the host's actions by latching onto their brain and taking over their central nervous system. This means that the only guaranteed way to stop one is by destroying the brain completely. Their call to the other store showed that this kind of stuff is happening all over the local area, and with the police not even picking up the phone, it doesn't look like they'll be getting help anytime soon. If they can make it to the car, then they at least have a chance of reaching a safe area. But they've got two big problems. The infected are fast, and Ruth here is not. Archie here is clearly the hero of the group, so he needs to go out first and use himself as a distraction to lead all of the infected shoppers away. Meanwhile, the others can put out Ruthie here in a shopping cart, run out to Ken's truck, swing around to pick Archie up, go get his wife and kids, and then get to a safe zone where they can all wait this out. They're surprised to see that the raging customers have already completely taken over the building, and just like the women on the phone tried to warn them, they're all gathering up random objects and even dead bodies and carrying them all to the center of the store. It looks like someone tried to get out through the employee exit, and the zombies will only keep coming if it stays open, so Archie forms a team to get it shut, while Ken takes the others to hide out in the manager's office. Once they're in a safe spot, Ken here tries calling his family on the phone, but gets worried when he can't get any service. Marnie notices him wandering off to the bathroom, and the manager comes along to keep him company, leaving her and Ruthie alone for an awkward conversation about their work-flirting relationship. As Archie and the others get near the back door, they happen to come across an infected woman who's busy chowing down on someone's intestines. Distracted by the gruesome sight, Brian accidentally steps on a balloon, drawing the woman's attention straight towards them. Luckily, Archie's able to take her down with a headshot from the nail gun while his buddies cower in fear. But they've still got a long way to go before the store is finally safe. Meanwhile, in the bathroom, Ken pops open a ceiling tile and finds his secret stash of booze. Or at least, he almost finds it until the bottle shatters on the floor. But that's when they realize that the truck driver Lou never finished taking his dump. The others sneak over to the exit, but Archie can hear another zombified shopper headed their way, so he waits until just the right moment to bash her in the head with a fire extinguisher before locking the door. On the cameras, Marnie can see that the shopper's little construction project is coming along fast, so she decides to take a look for herself, leaving Ruth back in the office. By now, the entire sales floor is covered in blood and guts, and as she makes her way over to Santa's workshop, she finds them constructing a bizarre purple tower. And the strangest part is that they're all molding it into, like, some kind of all-consuming blob. Sensing trouble, Ken pushes open the stall door, only for the infected truck driver to charge out and pin him against the wall. Suddenly, the creature pushes him right through into the lady's room as their battle continues, but Jonathan tosses his friend the broken bottle, and he's able to stop the monster with a quick stab to the neck. The survivors eventually regroup by the registers, but they're still divided on what they should do next. Ken mentions that it felt like the zombie in the bathroom was trying to drag him away, and Marnie tells them all what she saw the shoppers doing in Santa's workshop. Furious that he can't get any signal, Ken tosses his phone to the other side of the building, but Chris wisely goes to pick it up. Instead, Ken pops open the safe, determined to get his holiday bonus before they all wind up dead. But that's when he makes a shocking discovery. The safe is totally empty. It looks like their holiday bonuses were a fraud all along, and now every employee in the place is ready to turn on their boss.
Okay, now, before they all kill each other first, they should really take a minute to go over their options here instead. We just got our first look at what the shoppers have been building back there at the center of the store, and this might turn out to be some incredibly useful information. To me, this shows that they're acting as a hive mind, where the decisions are made by a single leader that has total control over everyone in the group, and they all act in harmony towards a shared goal. If one of them sees you, then every other infected person on the planet will know exactly where you are. This is also terrifying, but it also might be the key to defeating them if you can take out the entity at the center of it all. They can always go with old reliable, gather up some flammable materials and set a big fire at the bottom of the blob. The best part is this would double as a distraction for the infected, allowing them to get to Ken's car without being noticed. If they didn't want to risk a fire, then I'd take advantage of the blob's desire to absorb matter by intentionally feeding it corrosive materials like bleach or other industrial strength cleaning products, and try to destroy it from the inside out instead.
Things get even worse when Brian spills the beans that they will be laying people off once the holidays are over, and Maureen punches him in the face for being such a crappy boss. Just when they're about to tear each other apart, Ruth notices a police car speeding towards the building. It looks like they're saved, but instead the vehicle crashes straight through the door, sending her flying across the building, and now that the door is open, even more of them start rushing in, forcing everyone to scramble for safety. Ken uses a shopping cart to block the creature's path, but they delicately push it out of the way to continue their pursuit. Before they can get far, one of them tackles Chris and starts trying to get him with its mouth goo, but Archie grabs a screwdriver and pierces it through the woman's eye, saving his life just in time. As he's getting back on his feet, he notices the giant purple object, but while they're distracted, another zombie latches on to the big guy's arm. Telling Chris to run for it, he starts using a box cutter to slice the goo off of his arm. One charges him from behind, but he uses the Rambo knife that he carries, for some reason, to fight her off, slamming her into one of the shelves before flipping another one over on his shoulder and plunging it straight into her chest. But there's another, even more dangerous mutant watching from around the corner. It's the angry old lady who was giving Chris a hard time before, and after slashing him across the face, she webs the man and drags him up towards the ceiling. Chris has to run for his life before the creatures get him next, but as he's sneaking across the building, his horrifically mutated coworker Emmett charges after him, chasing him all the way to the back room. By now, this guy looks more like an alien than a human being, and while Ken barricades the door, Marnie grabs a wrench and starts fighting back, bashing him in the head over and over again until she finally takes him down, or at least that's what she thinks. After learning that Archie did not make it, the girl wonders out loud how much worse the night can get, and that's when the entire building loses power. They manage to light the place up with some glow-in-the-dark toys, but there's no way to tell how long the doors will hold out.
Okay, I'm not gonna lie, things are looking pretty bad here, but as long as they aren't infected yet, there's still a chance that they might survive. The store was almost 100% zombie-free until that police car smashed straight through the wall. Now it's only a matter of time before the entire place gets overrun, so even though this is a good spot to regroup for now, they won't be able to stay here for that much longer. Now, when it comes to the power outage, we can actually use this to our advantage. The darkness makes it much harder for the infected to see them and allows them to sneak through the store much more easily. It seems like the creatures can also hunt by smell, but if they try covering themselves with infected blood, that might camouflage their scent enough to get by. Just like we can turn one problem into an opportunity, we can do the same thing with the police car here. It seemed like it was still running, and it also seems a lot closer than Ken's truck in the parking lot. If they can get to it, it should have weapons, a radio, and even the keys to the station itself, where they can get more supplies or establish a shelter. First, they need to get ready by preparing their weapons and supplies. They should grab any work gloves, thick aprons, helmets, or face masks that they can find here in the maintenance area and use them as protective armor if they have to battle any infected shoppers. If they wear backpacks, they can load them with glow-in-the-dark toys for distractions. As far as weapons go, everyone should have two. They'll need a heavy one to use defensively, like a wrench, hammer, or broom. But the only creature we've seen that stays down is the one that Archie poked in the eye. So they should also carry precise options like a knife or a screwdriver to finish them off. They should start out by sneaking through the store until they reach the police car, where they can get inside, drive it to Ken's truck, and use both vehicles to escape. If it can't move, they should get whatever supplies they can from it, and then use the siren as a distraction while they all make a run for Ken's truck.
Hoping to make them all feel better, Marnie hands down some cold cuts from the fridge as their last Thanksgiving meal, but Ken here starts getting frustrated when he's reminded of his family. He's determined to get out of there and see his kids again, but the whole thing breaks out into an argument about how he's too old to keep trying to be the cool guy at the toy store. Feeling called out, he takes a flashlight and decides that he is leaving, leading the way over to the loading dock. Meanwhile, the purple blob in the center of the store is still getting bigger, and soon it's ready to break straight through the ceiling. The door's locked, but if they use some bolt cutters, they can get back into the back of the truck, climb out through the hatch in the roof, and drive to safety. Jonathan starts acting like he wants to go down with his ship like a true manager, but that's when Emmett gets back up looking even more up than before and starts coming after them while throwing shelves full of toys all around the room. Brian rushes in to help Ken fight him off, but during the scuffle, he ends up getting bitten on the hand. They're able to take him down again by smacking him over the head with a bag full of tools, but now they aren't sure if Ken here is going to transform into some kind of goo zombie. A few of them suggest cutting off the arm, but he's convinced that he's already done for and decides that he's going to stay behind and hold the creatures off while his friends escape. Opening the gate, Chris leads the way into the truck. As for his former best friend, he just sits there being mocked by the sad teddy bear until he finally decides to come up with a plan of his own. Putting on roller skates for some extra speed, he skates right into a chunk of his own skin in a rag on the floor. That's when he realizes that the zombie never bit him in the first place, and it was actually Brian that set him up. Climbing out of the trailer, Chris notices his friend Bircher standing there in the parking lot, but when he turns around, he realizes that he's been transformed into one of the most horrifying mutants yet. For a minute, it looks like he went away, but that's when he comes running back with a horde of zombies following behind him, forcing Chris to take shelter back in the truck. The only problem is he can't figure out how to get it moving, and inside, the constant yapping from dour Dennis ends up attracting attention from one of the creatures. It's the angry grandma again, and it doesn't take long before she crashes through the barricade, but Ken skates off and tosses the sad teddy bear onto a pile of flammable boxes. The short-circuiting battery causes the whole area to go up in flames, providing a distraction that lets Chris sneak back into the truck. But just when they think it's safe, the creatures come back and start trying to break in. One of them reaches straight through the wall and grabs hold of Marnie, but her friends manage to save her life by chopping its fingers off with the bolt cutters. It looks like they can't stay there, so their only choice is to go back into the store. But meanwhile, Ken and the angry grandma are still playing a game of hide and seek between the shelves.
Okay, this just turned into an absolute shit show. It looks like they won't be going out through the loading dock anymore, but they can't stay here either, since now they only have a matter of minutes before the entire place burns down. The fire means they only have a limited time to get out of there, but it's also one of the best weapons against the infected, so there's a reason why they can't use the flames to their advantage. As they go back through this part of the store, I'd start by grabbing something that I could use as a torch to fight the creatures off, since we might still have to battle a few on our way to the car. Now, when Chris got caught out by the truck, this drew all the zombies away from the parking lot and over to the back of the building. Right now, their route to Ken's car should be completely clear. The only problem is that Ken has the keys, so they'll need to get them before they can escape. While he has the angry grandma distracted, someone can make a torch from the flames or use a fire extinguisher to ambush her, taking her down long enough to get the keys from Ken. On his roller skates, it seems like he has the best chance of outmaneuvering the mutants, so they should keep using him as a distraction while the others sneak out. He can keep the mutants focused here in the back of the store while the rest of them get to his truck and then quickly meet up with them before they drive away. They should be able to go straight out through the front door, but if they run into any more mutants, there's something that we learned from the truck fight that might actually help us out. The creatures may be tough, but if you chop off their fingers, then that means you can chop off larger body parts as well. If they can find one, I'd grab a sharp weapon like an axe and aim for the legs, arms, and head, since hitting any one of those areas should do the trick.
Opening the door, the manager gets ready to lead the way, telling Brian to stay at the back of the group since he's the slowest. While avoiding the angry grandma, Ken scoots around behind some shelves and opens up 2 tanks full of flammable gas. He thinks that he's safe when he hides out by some mannequin heads, but that's when he realizes that the mutant granny here is actually right behind him, using some silly string to hold her off. Crawling for his life, he hides out behind some boxes while the entire building is slowly going up in flames. The others make it out to the roof, and Chris quickly notices that there aren't any more shoppers in the parking lot. Inside, Ken puts one of his roller skates on a dour Dennis and uses it as a distraction while he escapes out back to the sales floor. They still need a way off the roof, but with the fire spreading and the shoppers trying to break through, going back inside will not be an option. That's when Jonathan decides that he's finally had enough and starts going off about the horrors of working in retail before jumping down the hatch to hold the creatures off, giving his friends more time to figure out what to do. Taking cover behind some boxes, Ken's relieved to finally get a text that his wife and kids are all safe. It's good news, but it only lasts for a second before the mutant granny drags him away, pulling him through the store until they reach Santa's workshop. Up on the roof, the others realize that the giant purple blob is still growing even faster by the second. That's when Brian announces completely out of nowhere that he was the one who bit Ken, admitting that he did it just to get rid of him. Marnie here is absolutely furious, and it breaks out into a fight where they both end up tumbling straight off the roof, but they actually survive thanks to a dumpster breaking their fall. By now, the blob is so large that it's almost taking over the entire store, and the angry grandma starts fusing into it as they all become one massive creature. Ken quickly drags off one of his skates and hits her with it, buying a chance to escape before he gets dragged in too. As for Chris, he's also an absolute germaphobe, and now his only hope is to jump into a dumpster full of garbage. While he's busy counting down, the whole building shakes and sends him flipping over the edge, but he sticks the landing and makes it out alive. Brian over here still thinks that he's part of the group, but they give him the finger and leave him with the garbage where he belongs. The 2 survivors sneak over to the parking lot, trying to stay as quiet as they can. They're worried about attracting more mutants if they make too much noise, but by now it seems like they're already busy forming the blob. It seems like the coast is clear, but that's when dumbass Brian over here sets off a car alarm. All of a sudden, the blob makes its final transformation, morphing into a 50-foot tall alien turkey monster that's formed by all the shoppers, fusing together into one giant beast. For some reason, Brian over here decides that he wants to go communicate with this thing, but his middle management training isn't enough to save him from getting absolutely obliterated just 2 seconds later.
Okay, I'm sorry, but what the hell was this guy even thinking? This isn't some Karen you can bribe with store credit and coupons. That's Turkeyzilla. I guess he never realized that he would end up on the menu this Thanksgiving, but one thing is for sure, and it's Brian, you absolutely, positively f***ed up. At least we know you totally deserved it, because right from the beginning, you were the first person denying these zombie creatures even existed. Chris tried to warn you, but you completely refused to listen when all you had to do was check the cameras. Then maybe you could have gotten this situation under control, but now it looks like the mutant shoppers were just the start of the problem. I will give you credit for using the meat shield technique on Ken here. Not everyone has the cutthroat instincts needed to pull that one off, especially when we're talking about a guy who has kids. But you threw him under the bus without a second's hesitation, and it might have saved your life if it wasn't for what happened next. After so many years of working as a retail supervisor, you probably thought you were ready for anything, but maybe a 50-foot tall turkey monster is something we better leave to the military next time, because coming out and giving it the customer relations speech was definitely a bad choice. Hopefully they'll at least give you Employee of the Month for your sacrifice, but Brian, it kinda looks like you fucked up.
Hiding, Marnie and Chris realize that they can almost reach their friend's SUV, but they won't be able to get in without the keys. That's when Ken comes running out of the building with the keys in his hand, and they all apologizing for blowing up on each other back in the store. They still need to get out of there before the creature spots them, but when they try to go for his car, it starts hurling entire chunks of the broken building into their way. There's no way for them to get there unless the monster goes after something else. But thinking quickly, Chris announces that he does have a plan, asking Ken to create a distraction while he makes his move. While Ken gets the monster to focus on him, his friend runs over and hops onto the forklift, speeding straight towards the building at approximately 3 miles per hour. Taking the bait, the creature latches onto the forklift with its giant sticky tongue, and he puts it in reverse so that it'll have to pull with all of its strength, waiting until just the right moment before jumping off. This sends the forklift flying directly into the monster's face, and for a second it looks like even that won't be enough to stop it. But that's when another explosion goes off inside the building, finally killing the monster as the entire store collapses to the ground. But the invasion is not over yet. The survivors gather in Ken's truck as he fills them in on the news that his family made it to a safe zone. But as they're speeding out of the parking lot, they notice even more of the giant creatures off in the distance. It looks like things might be even worse than they thought, but on the bright side, at least they'll have plenty of alien turkey to eat next Thanksgiving.
Black Friday. Incredible cast, fun, campy humor. I mean, I love the horror aspect. I recommend this movie. Check it out if you got nothing better to do this Thanksgiving. And also, thanks for watching. If you guys would have done anything differently, let me know down in the comments below what you would have done. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and check out the How to Beat playlist for more videos just like this one. I'm the Guy. I'll see you in the next video, and have a damn good day.